Maya Rodriguez wiped the sweat from her forehead as she finished checking the air filters in Sector 7 of the Horizon's Edge. The massive ship hummed around her like a living thing, its engines pushing them through the dark space between human worlds and alien territory. She had been working on this vessel for 3 years now, fixing pipes and cleaning systems that kept everyone alive in the cold emptiness of space. The ship carried more than just crew members. Deep in the lower levels, behind thick metal doors and energy barriers, the military kept their prisoners. Aliens from the Catharian Empire who had been caught during the war that seemed to go on forever. Most of the crew never went down to those levels, and Maya tried to avoid them too, but her job meant she had to maintain the life support systems everywhere on the ship. The first time she saw the young alien, she almost dropped her tools. He looked so small sitting in the corner of his cell, his green-scaled skin dull and his large amber eyes staring at nothing. The other Catharian prisoners were bigger, more dangerous-looking, but this one seemed barely grown. His cell was the same size as the others, but he looked lost in it, like a child wearing clothes meant for an adult. Maya knew she should not stop and stare, but something about the young alien made her pause. His breathing looked wrong, too shallow and quick, and when he moved to reach for his water bowl, his hand shook. She had seen enough sick animals back on her home planet to recognize the signs. This alien was not getting enough food. The feeding schedule for prisoners was strict and calculated by the ship's computers. Each alien got exactly the right amount of nutrition to keep them alive, but not strong enough to cause trouble. The problem was that the computers calculated food based on adult Catharian bodies, and this prisoner was clearly not fully grown. Maya finished her work quickly and left the prison level, but she could not stop thinking about the young alien. That night in her small quarters, she looked up everything the ship's database had about Catharian biology. Most of it was military information about weak spots and fighting tactics, but buried in the medical files, she found what she was looking for. Young Catharians needed to eat much more often than adults during their growth phase. Their metabolism ran fast, like human teenagers, burning through energy quickly as their bodies developed. The standard prison rations were designed for adult aliens who could survive on less food. A growing Catharian would slowly starve on those portions. Maya stared at the information on her screen for a long time. What she was thinking about doing could get her thrown in prison herself. Or worse. Military law was clear about contact with enemy prisoners, but the image of those shaking hands reaching for the water bowl would not leave her mind. The next day, Maya packed an extra meal bar in her toolkit. When she reached the prison level for her maintenance rounds, she made sure no guards were watching and quickly slipped the food through the energy barrier of the young alien's cell. He looked up at her with those large amber eyes, confusion clear on his scaled face, but he took the food and ate it quickly. Maya did not wait to see his reaction. She finished her work and left, her heart beating fast from fear and something else she could not name. But the next day she brought another meal bar, and the day after that, another. Weeks passed, and Maya developed a routine. She would save part of her breakfast and lunch, wrap the food carefully, and deliver it during her maintenance rounds. The young alien began to watch for her, positioning himself near the front of his cell when she arrived. His breathing improved, and his hands stopped shaking when he reached for his regular water bowl. The changes were small at first. His scales began to look brighter, less dull and dry. His movements became smoother, less labored. Maya noticed that he was growing too, filling out his thin frame and standing taller when she appeared. Communication between them was impossible through the energy barrier and with no shared language, but Maya began to see intelligence in his eyes that had not been there before. He would nod slightly when she appeared, and sometimes he would touch his chest and then point at her, a gesture that seemed to mean thanks. Other crew members started to notice Maya's frequent trips to the lower levels, but maintenance work was boring and most people did not ask questions. Captain Brooks ran a tight ship, but she also trusted her crew to do their jobs without constant supervision. As long as the life support systems kept working, no one paid attention to how much time Maya spent fixing them. The young alien began to show more changes as the weeks went by. His amber eyes became brighter and more alert. Sometimes Maya caught him studying her face, like he was trying to understand something important. His movements became more graceful, and she noticed that his fingers were longer than before, more flexible. Maya realized she was watching him grow from a sick, frightened child into something stronger and more confident. The extra food was giving him what his body needed to develop properly. She felt proud of what she was doing, even though she knew it was dangerous. One day, as she slipped another meal through the barrier, the young alien did something new. He pressed his hand against the energy field from his side, fingers spread wide. Maya hesitated for a moment, then pressed her own hand against the barrier from the outside, matching his gesture. The energy field hummed between their palms, but for just a moment, it felt like they were really touching. The alien's eyes met hers, and Maya saw something that made her breath catch. Gratitude, yes, but also a kind of recognition, like he understood that she was risking something important to help him. In that moment, Maya knew that whatever happened next, she had made the right choice. This was not just about feeding a hungry prisoner anymore. This was about showing kindness to someone who needed it, regardless of what species they came from or what war was being fought outside the ship. Maya pulled her hand back and finished her maintenance work, but the feeling of that almost touch stayed with her for the rest of the day. She had no idea that her simple acts of kindness were about to change everything, not just for her and the young alien, but for the entire war between their peoples. The young alien was waiting for her again when Maya arrived for her daily maintenance check. Over the months of secret feeding, she had started to think of him as Zek, a name that seemed to fit his quick movements and bright eyes. She had no idea what his real name was, but Zek felt right when she thought about him. Today, Zek did something different. Instead of just taking the food she offered, he pointed to himself and made a series of soft, clicking sounds. Then he pointed to her and tilted his head, waiting. Maya realized he was trying to tell her his name and ask for hers. She pointed to herself and said slowly, "Maya." Then she pointed to him and waited. He repeated her name, the sounds coming out strange through his alien vocal cords, but recognizable. Then he pointed to himself again and made those clicking sounds. Maya tried to copy them, making him tilt his head in what looked like amusement at her poor attempt. This became their new routine. Along with the food, they began to share simple communication. Zek would point to objects and make sounds, teaching Maya basic Catharian words. Maya would do the same with human words. Progress was slow, but after weeks of this exchange, they could manage simple conversations. Maya learned that Zek had been captured on a mining colony called Vega Station. He had not been a soldier, just a young worker learning how to operate mining equipment. When human forces attacked what they thought was a military base. Zek had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. The humans had found him hiding in a storage room and assumed he was an enemy combatant. Through their broken communication of words and gestures, Zek told Maya about his family. He drew pictures on the dusty floor of his cell, showing her his clutchmates, the Catharian term for siblings. There were 5 others in his family group, all working together on different colonies. His parents managed a farming operation that grew food for Catharian settlements. Maya felt her heart break a little more each day as she learned about Zek's life before the war. He had never held a weapon or fought in any battle. He had been learning to be a mining engineer, excited about the chance to help his people find new resources on distant worlds. The war had stolen all of that from him, trapping him in a cell far from everyone he loved. As their communication improved, Maya began to understand more about Catharian society. Families worked together in groups called clutches, sharing resources and responsibilities. Young Catharians like Zek spent years learning different skills before choosing their adult profession. The war had disrupted this system, scattering families across the galaxy and forcing young people into military service they never wanted. Zek also began to change in ways that went beyond just getting healthier from the extra food. His amber eyes seemed to glow brighter in the dim light of his cell. Sometimes Maya caught him staring at the walls like he could see through them. His fingers had grown longer and more flexible, and she noticed that his scaled skin seemed to shift color slightly depending on his mood. One day, Zek became agitated during her visit. He kept looking toward the small porthole in his cell that showed the stars outside. He pointed at it and made urgent clicking sounds, then grabbed Maya's arm through the energy barrier. The field crackled around his hand, but he did not seem to notice the electric shock. Maya followed his gaze to the porthole, but saw only the usual black space dotted with distant stars. Nothing looked different to her human eyes, but Zek clearly sensed something out there. He kept repeating a Catharian word she did not recognize, his voice growing more excited and worried at the same time. Over the next few days, Zek's agitation increased. He ate the food Maya brought him, but his attention stayed focused on that porthole. Sometimes she found him pressed against the wall, his hand flat against the metal like he was trying to feel something through the ship's hull. The crew of Horizon's Edge began to notice strange things too. Captain Brooks called extra meetings with her senior officers to discuss unusual sensor readings. The ship's computers detected odd energy patterns in the space around them, but nothing showed up on visual scanners. It was like something was out there, watching them, but staying just beyond their ability to see it. Maya started to worry that Zek's changes were connected to whatever was causing the sensor anomalies. His eyes now glowed bright enough to cast light in his dark cell, and his skin color shifted constantly. Sometimes his features seemed to blur and change, becoming more angular and alien than before. The other Catharian prisoners remained normal, showing none of the changes Maya observed in Zek. This made her wonder if the extra food she had been giving him was causing these transformations. She researched Catharian biology again, but found little information about their development process. Dr. Kane, the ship's science officer, briefed the crew about increased subspace activity in their area. He explained that the energy readings suggested a large vessel was tracking them, possibly preparing for an attack. Captain Brooks ordered the ship to yellow alert and began planning defensive strategies. Maya listened to these briefings with growing dread. She suspected that whatever was out there had something to do with Zek, and if that was true, her secret feeding might have put the entire ship in danger. But she could not bring herself to stop helping him. The young alien had become important. To her, like a younger brother she needed to protect. During her next visit to Zek's cell, she found him calmer but different than before. His amber eyes met hers with an intensity that made her step back. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that had not been there before, making her bones vibrate slightly. Zek pointed to the porthole again, then to himself, then to Maya. He was trying to tell her something important, but the language barrier made it difficult to understand. He drew pictures on the floor showing a large shape approaching smaller ones, but Maya could not tell if it meant rescue or attack. The energy readings continued to strengthen over the following days. Captain Brooks increased security around the prison levels and restricted access to essential personnel only. Maya had to be more careful about her feeding routine, but she continued to bring Zek extra food. The changes in Zek accelerated. His scaled skin now seemed to flow and shift like liquid metal. His fingers had become almost twice as long as before, and his amber eyes held depths that reminded Maya of staring into deep water. Sometimes when she looked at him, she felt like she was seeing two different beings occupying the same space. One evening, as Maya prepared to make her usual rounds, the ship's alarm system activated. Red lights flashed in the corridors as Captain Brooks announced over the intercom that long-range sensors had detected an approaching vessel. It was unlike anything in their databases, but it was definitely Catharian in origin. Maya ran toward the prison levels, her heart pounding with fear and anticipation. Whatever was coming for them, she knew it was connected to Zek and the changes she had helped bring about. Her simple act of kindness had set something in motion that was bigger than either of them had imagined, and now they would all face the consequences together. The alien ship appeared on the view screen like nothing Maya had ever seen before. Instead of the angular metal vessels humans built, this craft looked almost alive. Its surface rippled with patterns of light that pulsed like a heartbeat, and its shape seemed to flow and change as she watched. The ship was enormous, easily 3 times the size of Horizon's Edge, but it moved through space with the grace of a swimming creature. Captain Brooks stood on the bridge with her officers gathered around her, all staring at the impossible sight. The alien vessel had simply materialized out of empty space, appearing without any of the energy signatures that usually announced a ship dropping out of faster-than-light travel. One moment the sensors showed nothing, and the next moment, this living ship was there, hanging motionless in space nearby. Maya watched from the maintenance corridor outside the bridge, her heart racing as she thought about Zek down in his cell. She had managed to reach the prison levels during the first alarm, and what she found there had shaken her to the core. Zek was standing in the center of his cell, his amber eyes blazing with light that cast shadows on the walls. His skin had become almost transparent, showing networks of energy flowing beneath like glowing rivers. The other Catharian prisoners were pressed against the walls of their cells, as far from Zek as they could get. They made low whimpering sounds and would not look directly at him. Whatever Zek was becoming, even his own people found it frightening. On the bridge, the communications officer announced that the alien ship was sending a signal. Captain Brooks nodded grimly and ordered it put on the main screen. The view screen flickered, and then Maya saw something that made her breath catch in her throat. The being that appeared was massive, easily twice the height of a normal Catharian. His scales were not the green of the prisoners Maya knew, but a deep gold that seemed to hold its own inner light. His eyes were the same amber as Zek's, but ancient and powerful in a way that made Maya feel small just looking at them. Most disturbing of all, His features seemed to shift and change as she watched, sometimes reptilian, sometimes something far more primal and dangerous. When the being spoke, his voice carried through the ship's speakers with a resonance that made the metal walls vibrate. He spoke in Catharian, but somehow Maya understood every word, as if the meaning was being placed directly into her mind. "I am Korvath of the Elder Shifters," the massive alien said, his golden eyes fixing on something beyond the camera. "You hold my son. I have come to reclaim what is mine." Captain Brooks stepped forward, trying to maintain her composure, despite the obvious power radiating from the alien leader. "I am Captain Brooks of the human vessel Horizon's Edge. We are holding Catharian prisoners of war according to the laws of military engagement. If you wish to discuss prisoner exchange, we can negotiate through proper diplomatic channels." Korvath's expression did not change, but the lights on his ship pulsed brighter. "There will be no negotiation. My son has awakened. The scent of his transformation calls to me across the void. Return him now, or face consequences that will extend far beyond this encounter." Maya felt the blood drain from her face. Awakened. Transformation. The changes she had observed in Zek were not just the result of better nutrition. Something far more significant was happening to him. Something that had drawn this incredibly powerful being across space to find him. Dr. Kane stepped up beside Captain Brooks, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. "Elder Shifter? Our databases contain no information about such beings. What exactly are you?" Korvath's amber eyes focused on the doctor, and Maya saw Kane take an involuntary step backward. "We are what your people would call myths, the apex of Catharian evolution. We are few and precious, and we do not forget those who help or harm our young." Captain Brooks tried to maintain diplomatic protocol. "We have treated all our prisoners according to established rules of war. Your son has been given food, water, and medical care appropriate to his species." For the first time, something that might have been amusement flickered across Korvath's massive features. "My son was dying when you captured him. The sustenance you provided was calculated for adult Catharians, not for a youngling in the midst of his awakening. Someone aboard your vessel has been feeding him additional nutrition. Someone showed him kindness when they were not required to do so." Maya felt her legs go weak. Somehow, this powerful alien knew about her secret feeding. She pressed herself against the corridor wall, hoping to remain invisible, but knowing that was probably impossible. Captain Brooks looked confused. "I don't understand. All prisoners receive regulated portions calculated by our medical computers." Korvath's eyes seemed to look directly through the view screen at Maya, though she knew that was impossible. "One of your people has been giving my son extra food for months, small acts of kindness that enabled his transformation from a dying youngling into what he was meant to become. That person has earned something precious among my people, a life debt." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the ship's systems. Maya could hear her own heartbeat in her ears as she realized the full scope of what she had unknowingly done. By feeding Zek, she had not just kept him alive. She had enabled some kind of alien transformation that had attracted one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Captain Brooks found her voice again. "What exactly do you want from us?" Korvath leaned forward, his massive form seeming to fill the view screen. "I want my son returned unharmed. I want to meet the human who showed him kindness. And I want to discuss why your people attacked a neutral mining colony where younglings from both sides of our civil war came to learn and work in peace." This last statement hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. Maya saw Captain Brooks exchange glances with her officers, confusion and concern clear on their faces. The information they had about the attack on Vega Station indicated it was a military target, not a peaceful mining operation. Dr. Kane stepped forward again. Civil war? Our intelligence reports indicate the Catharian Empire is unified in their conflict with humanity. Corvath's laugh was a sound like distant thunder. Your intelligence is incomplete. My people have been divided for generations, fighting amongst ourselves while your species expanded into what we considered our territory. The mining colonies were attempts to create neutral zones where our younglings could work together regardless of their family allegiances. Maya felt pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. Zek had told her he was just a worker, not a soldier. He had described a family involved in peaceful farming and mining operations. If Corvath was telling the truth, then humans had stumbled into the middle of a much more complex situation than anyone realized. On the view screen, Corvath's expression grew more serious. My son's awakening has shown him visions of the human who saved him, a female maintenance worker who risked punishment to feed a hungry youngling. I would speak with this person. Captain Brooks turned to scan her bridge crew, her eyes searching for answers. I'm not sure who you're referring to. Our maintenance staff follows strict protocols. Corvath's golden eyes seemed to burn brighter. Bring me the human called Maya Rodriguez, and I will tell you truths about this war that your leaders have never understood. Refuse, and I will take my son by force, and your ship will serve as a warning to any who would harm Elder Shifter younglings. Maya's world tilted as she heard her name spoken by the massive alien. There was no hiding now, no pretending that her small acts of kindness were insignificant. This being who could apparently destroy their ship with ease knew exactly who she was and what she had done. Captain Brooks looked genuinely puzzled. Maya Rodriguez is a maintenance engineer. She works on life support systems throughout the ship. Corvath nodded slowly. And she has been maintaining more than your ship's systems. She has been maintaining my son's life, enabling his transformation into what he was always meant to become. Bring her to me, and let us discuss the future of both our peoples. Maya knew she had no choice. Taking a deep breath, she stepped out of the corridor and onto the bridge, facing the view screen where the most powerful alien she had ever seen waited to meet the human who had changed everything. Maya stepped onto the bridge, with her legs shaking so badly she could barely walk. Every eye turned to her as she approached Captain Brooks, who stared at her with a mixture of shock and growing understanding. The maintenance engineer who had quietly done her job for 3 years was suddenly at the center of an interstellar incident that could determine the fate of both species. Maya, Captain Brooks said slowly, her voice carefully controlled. Do you have something to tell me about our Catharian prisoners? Before Maya could answer, Corvath's powerful voice filled the bridge again. Do not punish her, human captain. What your subordinate did was an act of mercy that saved not just my son's life, but potentially the future of both our peoples. Maya forced herself to look up at the view screen where the massive Elder Shifter waited. His golden eyes seemed to see straight through her, but there was no anger in them, only a deep intelligence and something that looked almost like gratitude. I fed him, Maya said quietly, her voice barely audible over the bridge's ambient noise. The young Catharian in Cell 7. He was starving on the standard rations. I could see he was too young for adult portions, so I brought him extra food. Captain Brooks closed her eyes for a moment, processing the implications. For how long? 4 months, Maya admitted. Every day during my maintenance rounds, Dr. Kane pushed forward, his scientific mind racing. The changes we've been detecting in the energy readings from the prison levels, the anomalous biological signatures, it's all connected to what you've been doing. Korvath's image on the screen nodded approvingly. Your doctor begins to understand. What Maya has accomplished through simple kindness is something your military strategists could never achieve through force. She has enabled the awakening of an elder shifter. Captain Brooks looked between Maya and the screen. I need to understand what that means. What exactly is an elder shifter? And why is it so significant? Korvath leaned back in what appeared to be a living chair aboard his organic ship. Among my people, perhaps 1 in 10,000 younglings carries the potential for true shape-shifting abilities. But that potential can only be realized under specific conditions during adolescence. Proper nutrition during the awakening period is crucial. Without it, the youngling remains ordinary. With it, they become something far greater. Maya felt her heart skip a beat. You mean I accidentally helped Zek become something special? Not accidentally, Korvath corrected, his massive form seeming to radiate warmth despite the cold view screen. You saw a hungry child and chose compassion over fear. That choice, repeated daily for months, has given my son abilities that will serve both our peoples for centuries to come. Dr. Kane pulled up data on his tablet, scanning through biological readings. The energy signatures we've been detecting from the prison levels have been increasing exponentially over the past month. If what you're saying is true, then Maya has been witnessing a fundamental biological transformation. Captain Brooks turned to Maya with a look of mixed admiration and concern. Do you realize you could face court-martial for unauthorized contact with prisoners? What you did violated every protocol we have. Maya straightened her shoulders, finding courage she did not know she possessed. I know I broke the rules, but I couldn't watch him die. He was just a kid, scared and hungry and far from his family. If helping him was wrong, then I don't want to be right. Korvath's laughter rumbled through the ship's speakers. Spoken like a true protector of younglings. Among my people, you would be honored for such instincts. Captain Brooks held up a hand. This is all very touching, but we still have a tactical situation to resolve. You have a ship capable of destroying us, and we have prisoners you want returned. How do we proceed without this turning into a battle? Korvath's expression became more serious. There will be no battle if you listen to what I have to tell you. The war between our peoples is based on misunderstandings that have cost both sides dearly. Your attack on Vega Station was a mistake that I am prepared to help you understand and correct. Dr. Kane looked up from his readings. You mentioned a civil war among your people. Our intelligence suggested the Catharian Empire was unified. Your intelligence is decades out of date, Korvath replied. My people have been fighting amongst ourselves for generations. Conservative factions want to expand aggressively into human space. Progressive factions seek coexistence and shared development of resources. The mining colonies were neutral ground where both sides could work together. Maya felt pieces clicking together in her mind. Zek told me he was learning mining engineering. He said his family worked on farming colonies. He was never a soldier. Korvath nodded. My son was on Vega Station as part of a youth exchange program. Younglings from both sides of our conflict learned valuable skills while building relationships across factional lines. When your forces attacked what they believed was a military installation, they destroyed years of careful peacekeeping work, Captain. Brooks absorbed this information with visible difficulty. If that's true, then our entire strategic assessment of this sector has been wrong. Catastrophically wrong, Korvath agreed. And now I must decide whether humanity is capable of learning from its mistakes, or whether my son's transformation was wasted on a species too rigid to change. Dr. Kane looked up from his tablet with excitement in his eyes. Captain, I'm reading massive changes in the biosignatures from the prison level. Something is happening down there right now. Maya felt a chill of premonition. Zek, something's wrong with Zek. Korvath's image leaned forward urgently. The awakening process is reaching its critical phase. My son needs guidance from his own kind, or the transformation could become unstable. I must be allowed to communicate with him directly. Captain. Brooks hesitated for only a moment before making her decision. Dr. Kane, establish a direct communication link between this ship and Prison Cell 7. Maya, you're coming with me to the detention level. As they hurried through the ship's corridors, Maya could feel the vibrations in the metal around them growing stronger. The very structure of Horizon's Edge seemed to resonate with energy coming from the prison levels. Other crew members they passed looked nervous and confused, sensing something was happening but not understanding what. When they reached the detention level, Maya gasped at what she saw. Zek's cell was blazing with golden light that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. The young Catharian floated 3 feet above the floor, his body surrounded by streams of energy that flowed like liquid light. His features shifted constantly, sometimes the familiar scaled face she knew, sometimes something more primal and powerful. The other Catharian prisoners cowered in their cells, making sounds of fear and reverence. Maya realized they recognized what Zek was becoming, even if they did not fully understand it. Captain Brooks activated the communication system. Korvath, we have visual contact with your son. What do we need to do? Korvath's voice filled the detention area, and immediately, Zek's floating form turned toward the speakers. The young alien's amber eyes, now blazing like small suns, fixed on the source of his father's voice. My son, Korvath said, his words carrying harmonics that made the walls vibrate. I am here. Let the awakening complete itself. You are safe. Zek's mouth opened, and sounds emerged that were unlike anything Maya had ever heard. Not quite speech, not quite music, but something that seemed to resonate in her bones and make her eyes water. The light around him pulsed brighter, and Maya realized she was witnessing something that few humans had ever seen. The birth of a being with power beyond normal understanding. As the transformation reached its peak, Maya understood that her simple acts of kindness had set in motion events that would reshape the relationship between humans and Catharians forever. The war that had seemed destined to continue for generations was about to change, and she stood at the center of that change, watching the young alien she had saved become something magnificent and terrible and beautiful all at once. The light surrounding Zek began to fade as his transformation completed, and he gently lowered to the floor of his cell. Maya stared in amazement at what he had become. He was taller now, his features more defined and mature, but his amber eyes still held the same kindness she remembered. When he looked at her through the energy barrier, she saw recognition and gratitude that made her heart swell. Father, Zek said, his voice now carrying the same harmonic resonance as Korvath's, though gentler and younger. I can feel you across the void. The human Maya saved my life and enabled my awakening. She showed me that not all humans are enemies. Captain, Brooke stood beside Maya, watching this reunion between father and son that was taking place across space and through prison barriers. The tension on her face had shifted from fear to something approaching wonder as she began to understand the magnitude of what they were witnessing. Corvath's image on the communication screen seemed to radiate pride and relief. "My son, you have grown strong. The awakening has made you what you were always meant to be. Now we must speak of the future, for your transformation has given us an opportunity that may never come again." Dr. Kane hurried up with his tablet, showing readings that made his eyes wide with excitement. "Captain, the energy levels stabilizing around the young Catharian are off any scale we have. He's generating some kind of field that's affecting the entire ship's systems, but not in a harmful way. It's almost like he's harmonizing with our technology." Zek looked at the human doctor with interest. "I can feel the ship's systems now, the flow of power and air and water that keeps everyone alive. Maya has been maintaining these systems to care for all of us, even her enemies. Such dedication to life itself is worthy of great respect." Maya felt tears forming in her eyes as she realized that Zek understood not just what she had done for him, but why she had done it. He saw her commitment to preserving life in all its forms, even when that life belonged to beings her own species was fighting. Captain Brooks stepped forward. "Corvath, your son is clearly no longer a prisoner in any meaningful sense. What he's become is beyond our ability to contain, and frankly, I'm not sure we should try. What do you propose we do next?" Corvath's massive form leaned forward on the screen. "I propose something that has never been attempted between our peoples, a true alliance based on understanding rather than fear. My son's awakening has created a bridge between our species that could end this pointless war." Maya found her voice. "What kind of alliance?" "The kind where humans and Catharians work together instead of destroying each other," Corvath replied. "My son can serve as a translator not just of language, but of intention and emotion. Through him, our peoples can finally understand each other's true motivations." Zek nodded, his glowing eyes bright with possibility. "I have learned human compassion from Maya, and I carry the wisdom of my own people. I can help both sides see that this war serves no one's interests." Dr. Kane looked up from his readings. "The implications are staggering. If what you're suggesting is possible, we could be looking at the end of decades of conflict." Captain Brooks considered carefully before speaking. "This is far beyond my authority to negotiate. Any formal alliance would need approval from Earth Command and your own leadership." Corvath smiled, an expression that was both alien and somehow familiar. "I am the High Elder of the Progressive Coalition, representing nearly half of all Catharian worlds. I have the authority to negotiate.